it's always fun, I think, to take a minute to look inside the books we talk about. And today I want to run a little contest for you. I want you to pretend that you and Stephen Allen and all of our viewers are the Inklings. You are C.S. Lewis and Charles Williams and J.R.R. Tolkien. You're gathered in Lewis's rooms in Magdalen College, Oxford on a winter night in 1940. You've passed the port around, you lit the cigars, you've read some of your ongoing works to each other, and then that mischievous Lewis suggests, let's play Amanda Ross, a game that was one of their favorites in World War I when they were all undergraduates. Amanda McKittrick Ross is probably, if not definitively, the worst author in the English language. She was an Irish country housewife who in the 1890s took it in mind to supplant Marie Corelli as the great English writer of potboiler novels and romances. She published one in 1897 called Irene Iddesleigh. And in February of that year, an English critic called Barry Payne came across it and reviewed it in the Black and White magazine as the novel of the century. Here's what he said.
Was he drunk?
I had seen no advertisement of it. I had read no reviews of it. It has come up at me suddenly out of the night. To speak more correctly, it has been sent to me by some friends in Ireland. They thought that I should be amused by it, confusing me probably with the other man of the same name who writes the so-called funny articles. The book has not amused me. It began by doing so. Then, as its enormities went on getting more and more enormous in every line, the book seemed something titanic, gigantic, awe-inspiring. The whole world was full of Irene Iddesleigh, and this is Amanda McKittrick Ross, and I shrank before it in tears and terror. Never mind the plot, Payne said. It's got a plot, but the plot is nothing compared to the style. And the style reaches its full beauty in the form of reflections. And he gives a couple of examples and then says, after the second of these beautiful reflections occur the words, great mercy. I rather think that too, but I don't comment. I can't. Nobody could. This is the reason why I have seen no reviews of this book. It is a thing which happens once in a million years. There is no one above it and no one beside it, and it sits alone as the nightingale sings. Attempt to give any clear idea of it have still to be invented. The most stupendous and monumental characteristic on it is perhaps its absence of any sense of humor. It is enormous. It makes the Eiffel Tower look short. The Alps are molehills compared to it. It is on a scale that has never before been attempted. And so the point of Lewis's game, as he and the Inklings played it 70-odd years ago, was to see how long anyone could go during listening to a reading of it without laughing. And so I will begin now with Chapter 1 of Irene Iddesleigh. Sympathize with me indeed. Ah, no, cast your sympathy upon the chill waves of troubled waters. Fling on it the oases of futurity. Dash against it the rock of gossip. Or better still, allow it to remain within the false and faithless bosom of buried scorn. Such were a few remarks of Irene as she paced the beach of limited freedom, alone and unprotected. Sympathy can wound the breast of trodden patience. It hath no rival to ensure the feelings we possess, save that of sorrow. The gloomy mansion stands firmly within the ivy-covered, stoutly built walls of Dunfern, vast in proportion and magnificent in display. It had been built over 300 years, and its structure stands respectably distant from modern advancement, and in some degrees, it could boast of architectural designs rarely, if ever, attempted since its construction. The entrance to this beautiful home of Sir Hugh Dunfern, the present owner, is planned on the most antique principles. Nothing save an enormous iron gate meets the gaze of the visitor, who is at first inclined to think that all public rumors relative to its magnificence are only the utterances of the boastful and idle. Nor until within its winding paths of finest pebble, studded here and there with huge stones of unpolished granite, could the mind for a moment conceive or entertain the faintest idea of its quaint grandeur. Beautiful, however, as Dunfern Mansion may seem to the anxious eye of the beholder, yet it is not altogether free from mystery. Thudding plot point. Whilst many of the rooms with walls of crystal are gorgeously and profusely furnished, others are locked incessantly against the foot of the cautious intruder, having in them only a few traditional relics of no material consequence whatever, or even interest to any outside the ancestral line of its occupants. It has often been the chief subject of comment among the few distinguished visitors within its spacious compartments, why seemingly the finest rooms the mansion owned were always shut against their eager and scrutinizing gaze, or why, when referred to by any of them, the matter was always treated with silence. And I'll add there another thudding plot point. All that can now be done is to merely allow the thought to dwindle into bleak oblivion until aroused to that standard of disclosure which defies hindrance. Within the venerable walls surrounding this erection of amazement and wonder may be seen species of trees rarely, if ever, met with. Yea, within the beaded borders of this grand old mansion, the eye of the privileged behold the magnificent lake, studded on every side with stone of costliest cut and finish, the richest vineries, the most elegant ferns, the daintiest conservatories, the flowers and plants of almost every clime in abundance, the most fashionable walks, the most intricate windings that imagination could possibly conceive or genius contrive. In fact, it has been named the Eden of luxury. Dunfern Mansion was handed down as an heirloom since its purchase by Walter, third Earl of Dunfern in 1674, and since then has been tenderly cared for internally and carefully guarded externally by the skillful hands of noted artisans. The present owner is the only son of Sir John Dunfern by Irene, adopted daughter of Lord and Lady Dilworth of Dilworth Castle, County Kent. And that concludes Chapter 1 of Irene Iddesleigh by Mrs. Amanda McKittrick Ross, published in 1897. It is the sort of book Dorothy Parker would have had in mind when she wrote a review in the 1920s in which she said, "This is not a book to be put aside lightly. It should be thrown with force." And so I believe I heard from while I was reading that Steve broke in about 15 seconds.
Well, yeah. What else would C.S. Lewis be doing? Talking about suing Graham Greene for Istanbul train? Yeah, come on.
I invite readers to post the amount of time they held out, and if you are the sort who really must know what comes in Chapter 2,
no.
You can go to Gutenberg.org and download a copy of the entire.
No, Lindsay, I have to ask you. I was listening to you in rapt attention. Actually, I was in a Zen mode. You took me into my inner soul.
You got a great voice.
Have you ever looked on Abe or Amazon? Is there a copy of that thing for sale? And what do they go for?
Actually, there is a market.
Is it really big, like you said? Is it a huge book?
It's 300 pages long. It's a full-length novel. She wrote 3 altogether. 2 were published in her lifetime, and the third somehow escaped many decades later. You can find them online for a couple of $100, simply because they are so rare, and she is so renowned for being a bad writer that there is to this day an Amanda McKittrick Ross Society. You can look them up online. There has been a biography published of her. She, like William McGonagall, the Scottish poet, she is so bad that she has managed a form of immortality. And if you have an actual first edition, Amanda McKittrick-Ross, you have something worth several $100s.
It's funny because the
I would
Corelli
treasure
sisters
it.
used
You
to
know
be
what? I
hot.
would put that on my book stand.
Well, it's one of those books that really, it only went through one edition, and like the books of the novelist Freddie Turner, a friend of Max Beerbaum's, it used to be said that the only thing rarer than a first edition Freddie Turner was a second edition Freddie Turner.
That's me.
Rarer is the unsigned copy.
Of course, Steve and I have a friend who's the world's greatest collector, and he would have the manuscript of both.
The
But
manuscript
that's
of
my
the
story, and
manuscript.
I'm sticking to it.
Florida.
Antiquarian.
Book Fair.
Florida. Antiquarian.
Book Fair. Book Fair.
Book fair. Book fair.
Book fair.
Books.
Maps.
Friends.
Ephemera.
Autographs.
And more.
And more.
And more. Bookstores.
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 Paradise.